What if boredom is your mind slowing you down on purpose? Boredom is usually treated as a problem, something to escape, something to fix as quickly as possible. When boredom shows up, we reach for something, a screen, a task, anything that brings stimulation back. Because boredom feels wrong. It feels like wasted time, like nothing is happening, like you're falling behind. But boredom doesn't appear randomly. It often shows up when the pace finally drops, when there is no urgency, no immediate demand pulling your attention forward. And that's when it becomes uncomfortable. Not because there's nothing to do, but because there's nothing pushing you to do it. The mind is used to motion, deadlines, signals telling it where to go next. So when those signals disappear, boredom fills the space. But boredom isn't empty. It's a state where stimulation has dropped below what the mind is used to. For a long time, the brain adapts to constant input, new information, quick rewards, small bursts of novelty. Over time, that level of stimulation becomes the baseline. So when things slow down, the contrast feels sharp. The mind interprets the absence of stimulation as something missing, and that sensation gets labeled as boredom. But boredom isn't a lack of interest, it's a lack of urgency. Nothing is demanding a response. Nothing is telling the mind what matters right now. So attention drifts, and drifting feels uncomfortable when we're used to being directed. Boredom often shows up right after silence, after the noise stops, after the schedule clears, after the next task is no longer obvious. It's not a coincidence. When external pressure disappears, internal pacing changes. The mind begins to slow. And slowing down feels unfamiliar in a world that rewards speed. Boredom removes the illusion of progress. When you're busy, movement feels like meaning. When you're occupied, activity feels like value. But boredom interrupts that connection. It asks a quiet question without words. What are you doing when nothing needs you? That question doesn't come with an answer. So boredom gets blamed instead. We say we're bored when what we're actually feeling is the absence of direction. Boredom doesn't tell you what to do next. It doesn't offer clarity. It doesn't give reassurance. It just holds space. And holding space without distraction feels exposed. This is why boredom often pushes people toward stimulation, not toward rest, because rest without distraction can feel like stagnation. But boredom isn't trying to punish you. It's not trying to stop you. It's often the mind easing off the accelerator. After long periods of intensity, constant input, or continuous pressure, boredom can be the nervous system lowering its demand. Not because you've failed, but because the pace was unsustainable. From the inside, that adjustment feels dull, uneventful, almost uncomfortable. But discomfort doesn't always signal a problem. Sometimes it signals a transition. Boredom sits between stimulation and intention. It's a space where nothing pulls you, but nothing has replaced that pull yet. That's why boredom feels restless. Not because you want something specific, but because the usual signals are gone. The mind doesn't know where to aim, so it scans. It looks for something familiar, something engaging, something to react to. And if nothing appears quickly, boredom deepens. But boredom itself isn't the enemy. It doesn't demand action. It doesn't require escape. It simply marks a slower rhythm, a pause between inputs. In that pause, the mind isn't being directed outward, so attention turns inward, and inward attention can feel heavy when it hasn't been practiced. Boredom brings awareness without distraction. That's why it feels uncomfortable. Not because it's meaningless, but because it removes the usual noise that fills the gaps. When boredom lingers, people often assume something is wrong, that they should be more motivated, more inspired, more engaged. But boredom isn't always a sign of lack. Sometimes it's a sign that the system is recalibrating, lowering intensity, reducing stimulation, creating space. Space without instructions. That space doesn't tell you what to do with it. It just exists. And existing without direction can feel unsettling. So boredom isn't a failure of interest. It's a moment where the mind is no longer being pulled forward. It's the absence of pressure interpreted as absence of purpose. What if boredom isn't something to fix? What if it's your mind slowing you down on purpose? Not to stop you, but to change the pace at which you move.